I'm so excited for this video. You guys, we are talking about how to budget. Budgeting 101, what you need to know to track your finances the simplest and easiest way possible. So before we get into it, let me introduce myself. I'm Jess. I'm here with the Rich Girl Book Club, and this is my club for anyone that wants to get a little bit richer, a little bit smarter, and a little bit whatever you want. And we're going to tackle both rich and smarter today as we talk about how to budget 101, bare minimums to be successful and feel clarity and transparency with your finances. I'm so excited to talk about this. So what are we going to go over today? We're going to talk about the things that you need to budget, right? Your resources, which includes your bank statements, pay slips, things like that, and what to do with them in a spreadsheet to get the data that you need. I'm a finance girly, but you do not have to come along this journey. I think everyone should be financially empowered and take accountability for their finances. Okay, let's try to make this as fun as possible. And before I get started, one more note. So I will be going through my own personal finance tracker that I love so much. And guess what? I'm going to have this for you guys for free. Yes. Check the description box for a link so that you can get my finance tracker for free with all of the resources that I'm going to be going through today for you. And this is a great opportunity. But also, if you're not interested in that at all, keep watching the video and I'll be going over basics for budgeting that you don't want to miss. You can create your own system, your own spreadsheets, whatever system that you want. This is a great way to just remind yourself how to keep things simple and easy. So let's just jump right into it. I'm going to be sharing my screen and my finance tracker, like I said, but use whatever you want. And let's just jump right in, guys. I love a good spreadsheet, so let's go straight to the spreadsheet. Opening up my finance tracker, I'm really so excited to talk about this today. And how I have it set up and how I would recommend having it set up is different tabs for different parts of your budget that you need and going in a chronological order from left to right. So I guess a sequential order. Would really recommend that, and I think that makes a big difference and just makes it easier for you to keep track. So let's dig into our first tab here, the summary tab. This is probably the most typical budget that you'll see, right? It's just your budget categories, how much the budget is, and the type of budget. And I'm going to go through each column here in a moment. But one quick note for my specific finance tracker is, one, I'm going to have a more in-depth video going over this tracker very soon. And if you download it, I would so recommend watching that video. And it'll basically just walk you through everything you need to know, but I'll keep it high level here. So for this one, you want to update the yellow cells and leave the blue alone, and that goes through all the tabs. So as we see our yellow section here, first off the bat, what are your budgeting categories? What are areas that you spend in on a monthly basis? This first section here is monthly, so I would recommend tracking your budget category, maybe adding a description for it. That's just for your own personal use to make sure that you know what category everything goes into. Adding a budget, this one specifically has the budget numbers in negative. If you've never made a budget before, this process is going to look more like, let me pick a number from my budget, then let me go take a look at my expenses over a couple months, see what I'm actually spending, how I feel about that, what's realistic, and what is also attainable. And you're going to kind of go back and forth. But just for the jump right here, I've included some example budget numbers that I think is a really good place to start. Next up, you have a category for fixed or variable, and then monthly versus annual. So I think this is also helpful so that you can see like what is fixed, what is going to occur in my account every month, no matter what, versus variable that's going to fluctuate every month. And then for the monthly versus annual, that's kind of more specific to my budgeting, but basically, is this a expense that is for that month? Or is that an expense that's more on an annual basis? And that could be something like travel or something that you are saving for, like a big purchase, or like my Christmas category, I consider annual. So those are some different ideas there. So I would also organize them by your monthly categories and your annual categories. And then we have a nice little summary down here at the bottom. What are our monthly fixed and monthly variable totals? And then what can we expect on an annual basis? So this is really just like a good place to start. And I have a lot of examples here to go off of, as well as some steps for updating this. Okay, that's it for our summary budget items. Next, we get to go into the income part. This is fun. This is the money that you're making and you're bringing in. So this is the fun part. Right now, I have this set up for bi-weekly paychecks. Now, you can have a different pay period. You might have bi-monthly, monthly paychecks. You might have multiple jobs with multiple streams of income. Totally fine and can be adaptable here. You can just add rows, change the dates, anything like that. But If you want to keep it as is, you start off with your first pay date here, and this is what I would recommend for your own version as well, is having your pay date and then each column be the categories that go through your paycheck. So we started our gross income. What is the top line number that you earn from your company? And then everything that gets taken out from that. Not fun. But it is fun to see how much that you're putting towards different career goals. So for example, in this version right now, this person has a $2,000 paycheck. They put $200 in their 401k. They have a $50 healthcare cost, and they're putting $20 in an HSA. So those are all their pre-tax contributions that come out of their paycheck, which leaves them with their taxable income of $1,730. After that, they pay taxes, and then there's 2 more columns for taxable income, leaving them with their net pay. So in the tracker, there is an option to edit your post-tax and really any of these columns. You can add more columns as well if you have other adjustments to your paychecks, but this is a really good place to start. And then you want to make sure that that last number, the $1,300, for example, is what is hitting your bank account. That is your direct deposit. So like I said, this is the fun stuff. This is the money that you're bringing in, and you can kind of track it through the whole year. So for someone that has a standard bi-weekly paycheck, there's going to be about 25 pay periods approximately. And then you can take a look at the bottom here. So this is an example for a $52,000 gross salary, and the net pay with all those adjustments and taxes and such is that $33,800. So like I said, this is the fun stuff on the income side. Definitely really important to track, but let's take it to our expenses, which are typically what are more in your control and more adjustable. This is where we can make the biggest impact, is in our expenses. So I've purposely set it up like this, as you're gonna see on your bank statements. Okay, you go into your little bank, your credit card, your checking accounts, all of your accounts that you spend money with. And what you're gonna do is export your transactions. So you wanna go to your transaction summary. I would recommend pulling all of your transactions year to date. You can do it by month, you can do, it usually does since your last statement, which is kind of just like a random time frame. So pull all of the expenses you can year to date and then export it. And it'll export in either an Excel file or a CSV file. Doesn't really matter, it's gonna be in a spreadsheet form, and it's gonna work for throwing your numbers into a spreadsheet. So in this one, again, yellow cells you wanna edit, blue leave alone. So here you can just paste your expenses right here, and then categorize each expense from there. So for example, I have a rent payment, and that was paid on the 2nd of January. The category for that is rent. This one's pretty straightforward, but this drop down here, this is really important. That's why we have to set your budget first, is choosing what categories that your expense goes to. So that's why we kind of start with the budget. And as you're going through your expenses, you might find that there's budget categories that you didn't think of. Go ahead, add those in. It's going to pop up in this drop down in this case. And then of course your amount, in this case as a negative number, since it's an expense. You can track your bank if that's helpful for you, what credit card it came from, whatever. And then also tracking as a monthly or annual expense, and then fixed or variable. So basically this will give you a good summary of like, what are my expenses, and how I would recommend doing it is one sheet with all your expenses. So if you maybe do January through March, you put all your expenses in here and use it. Then when the end of April comes along, you can scroll to the bottom and add your April expenses. Easy as that. So this is your expense side, okay? This is the part where you're probably gonna spend the most time, because you do have to categorize each one, and you might have to jog your memory of what each line item is, because sometimes they come up as something funky. I went through and these are random expenses, by the way. I want to include examples in here of potential expenses so that you can really start thinking about what kind of expenses are going to flow through for you. All right, so we have our income, we have our expenses, we've done a lot of the heavy lifting. Now, what do you want to know? I want to know if I'm profitable. Am I making enough money? What is my end of year going to look like? And don't worry, that's where I got you. So we're going to move over to the annual budget tab. I love this tab. It's beautiful. It's basically your personal income statement. And if you're not a finance person or a business person, you might not know what an income statement is, but it's basically like if you were a business, how profitable you are. And I think that's really important to know, even if you're really not interested in business at all. You are a business, and this is your life. So getting a little less philosophical here, taking a look at our annual budget. We have our income section here in this top box, and then we have the second box here that's for expenses, and then some adjustments here at the bottom that I'll go through. But first off, you want to have a summary for each month. I want to see what's my gross income for January, all the adjustments taken out, what's my take-home pay, or my net income in this case. Then we want to take a look at our expenses, fixed versus variable. In this example, there's some pop downs for the different categories, but you can also just look at it from a fixed versus variable cost perspective, and then you get your first profit number. So in this example, this person's net income for January was $2,600. Between fixed and variable expenses, the spending was $1,464, leaving them with $1,100 profit approximately. And that's technically what you could consider your accounting profit for the month. But what about those annual expenses? Like maybe you paid for your car insurance that was for 6 months. Maybe you paid for that in January. It's a very specific example. And you don't want it to hit all in January, but you do know that it physically comes out of your account in January, and that's where cash flow comes into. So let's talk about cash flow. And this might sound a bit nuanced, but this is really an important thing to think about, is your running profit for each month as well as your cash flow. That's why I included it here. I think it's really important. So that brings us to our annual expense line. So in annual expenses, this person spent $590 in annual related expenses in January. So the cash flow was really $546, and that would be a 21% profit margin. I tried not to have too many metrics in here, but I thought that was just one percentage that is pretty impactful. And that is your January overview. So this will update each month for actuals, and then for the rest of the months of the year, it's going to be your budget numbers. So if you stick to your budget, if you make the amount of money that you're expecting to make, this is what the rest of the year will look like for you. And you can see it in this last column here on an annual basis. Like this is the total amount of money I'm bringing home into my accounts. This is the amount that is probably going to be leaving my accounts. And this is what I'm left with. And this is the total annual spending that is digging into that profit. So really important to consider all of that. And this is really the main part of the page. There's some, metrics over here on the side. That is for calculating. But if you're going to make this on your own, it's really just a monthly summary of all those numbers that you put in your income and expense sheets. Okay, we're almost there. You guys are doing great. Stick with me. Let's go to our monthly expense template. So I'm skipping over a couple ones here, but I want to go to our monthly expenses. Like I said before, expenses are something that is a bit more adaptable. You can make changes to it really quickly. There's a lot of variable expenses. So I think that a lot of our energy usually goes around looking at our expenses. So for that reason, I would recommend, and I have in here, monthly tabs for each month of the year. And you can flip through each one and take a look at a summary of that month by category, and then all of your line items that line up. Okay, so let's take a look right here. We're looking at our monthly template, and the template right now is showing March. On the left here, this monthly summary is our budget categories, our actuals versus our budget, and the variance. Okay, so for example here, automotive. The actual spend was $98, our budget was $250, which seems a little funky, and then the variance is $152 left over that we didn't spend. So that's why it's green, if that helps. Green means good, red means we went over budget. So in this case, the budget for rent is way off that I'm noticing in here, and that's why it's red. We also have a percentage spent. So if you know that you have spent 60% of your grocery budget, but it's only 1 week into the month, so like 25% of the month, you know that you might not have spent all of your budget yet, but you're on track to potentially overspend, if that makes sense. So that's why the percentage there is really important. You can see like a running percent of how you're spending. Okay, so that's all of the summary over here. And then if you scroll down a bit more, we get our fixed and variable summary as well. This section to the right here is your expense details. So what this is showing you is every single line item that went through that's rolling up into this summary. So this is really helpful because you can say, wow, $72 in food, what was that? I can come over here and I can see all my food. I was like, okay, there was an ice cream expense, okay. Oh, I spent $40 at this restaurant. Maybe it says the restaurant's name potentially in the expense line. And you can, first of all, make sure it's accurate. Second of all, see if there's any adjustments you want to make to what category it rolls up to, or just anything else that you want to determine from the expense. So this is where it's really the most important. Like if you get lazy and you don't update everything, I would really highly recommend still updating these monthly expense tabs because it really informs what you're really spending. Every single transaction that goes through, you can see it and you can understand the impact that it's having on your money overall. So that's that. That's what I'm going to say about the expense summary. And one last tab in here, and one more thing that I recommend for budgeting is having your annual expenses summarized as well. So if you do opt to have expenses that are in the annual bucket, tracking those as well is really important. Those ones can really sneak up on you, which I've seen from experience. You think that you're only spending, maybe I was only spending like $2,000 on travel this year, and then when you really add it up and put it separately, it might be a little bit more than that. Just keeping it real with you all. So keeping a look at those annual expenses too, and really just having an overall look at your total finances. So that's an overview of what to do in your spreadsheet for budgeting. Now, what do you do with this information? Couple things. Expenses, you can adjust or change your budget. You can adjust or change your spending. You can make new categories. You can get rid of categories you're not using. You can do a lot of different things along that. So that's what I would say first is all things expense related regarding the tracking as well as the actual spending of expenses. I think that's an important piece. Another important thing to look at here is your monthly profitability, which I was talking about on this annual budget page, is kind of looking at the rest of the year and saying, do I like this? Is this spending sustainable for me? Am I profiting more than I'm not? Am I going to be negative by the end of the year? Am I living outside my means? Like really having those conversations with yourself and determining what to do about it or how you feel about it. So I would say for this person, if they are, for example, thinking about increasing their fixed expense, let's say that they're moving into a new apartment and their fixed expense is going to go up to $1,500 versus the current budget that's around $1,100. You could come in here and you could just overlay these numbers with what you're estimating your new rent to be. And you can quickly see that if they change, let's say starting in April, we're paying $1,500 in fixed expenses. So we can see, okay, we're still profitable. We're profiting about $100 a month. That's a little bit small of a margin. And then if you account for your annual expenses down here, you're actually not profitable, and you might potentially not earn as much unless you have a triple paycheck month. In this case, we have a couple of triple paycheck months that really helps a lot. So you'll just have to look at your situation, and basically this can really help you make decisions of what is it going to look like if I take on that car payment, if I change my rent, if I get a new job, my income goes up. It's going to help you determine all of that without too many calculations and metrics and things like that. Trust me, I love the metrics and the profitability, the cash flow, the balance sheet. Like, I love it all. Net worth tracking, chef's kiss. But this is, if you want to keep things simple and easy, this is the way to go. So thank you so much for clicking on this video, Learning Budgeting 101. Please let me know if you have any questions and check out my free, did you hear that? Free budget tracker below. Welcome your feedback. If you open it up and see some points of feedback or some things that would be helpful or some things that are confusing, let me know. I would love, love, love to have your feedback. Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe. Hit me with a like for more Rich Girl Book Club content. Bye.